This story was submitted by user Cotard_corpse. When I was a teenager, my parents divorced. Nothing special. Happens all the time. My dad was quick to put a distance between my mom and me, moving a state away. Though he had the legal right to see me once a month, he opted not to deal with the drive. Instead, I stayed at his house for a month each summer. It wasn't my favorite time of the year. He lived in a small Midwestern town where I knew no one and had little to do. I spent most of my time riding his old bike along the decommissioned railroad tracks and skipping rocks through a muddy creek. The only portion of the whole affair I looked forward to was the drive there and back. About midway between my mom and my dad, on a lonely stretch of highway that cut like a scythe through the golden fields of wheat, was a truck stop. Not just any truck stop. This was the world's largest truck stop. Even as a teenager, I doubted the veracity of that claim. How could anything in the Midwest be the largest part of something? Surely, there was nothing so notable in the vast, rusted land. But it was big. There was a laundromat and a bar and a dentist. There was a massive store that stocked a massive array of glitter and chrome truck accessories. It had rows of audiobooks and an entire wall filled with wolf and wizard shirts. I always begged my dad for one on the way back, and that's how I ended up with a small collection of hyper-detailed wildlife and fantasy tees. Of course, though, there was also an enormous public restroom. There must have been at least 20 stalls. Despite its tourist-baiting pedigree, this truck stop wasn't particularly well kept. There was a thin veneer of grime over everything. The floors were constant swirls of dirt and red gravel. The bathrooms weren't much better. There were always pools of water on the wall-length countertops and collecting in the corners, and no one ever seemed to locate the garbage, leaving their crumpled paper towels stewing about the floor where they blew around like tumbleweed. Naturally, like any grungy bathroom, there was a wide variety of graffiti coating in the stall walls. There was the old classic like Jesus Saves, but he can't get me from a gas station, and I hate vandalism, a Hail Satan scribbled around a circle crude pentagram, and every manner of dick you could ever imagine. Big ones, short ones, veiny ones, girthy ones, stick figures with penises for heads, or penis guns, and on and on. When I went out to my dad's that first summer, I was firmly engrossed in my edgy phase and was eager to add my own infantile message to the rest. I picked a middle stall that was relatively devoid of any art, and I wrote on the door, at eye level, so that anyone sitting down would immediately see my chicken scratch. That was prime real estate. At the time, the one thing at the forefront of my mind was my bully at my school, Arnold. He was the type of person who would go out of his way to find me during the passing period, just so he could knock the books out of my arms. The type of person who deliberately aimed at heads in dodgeball. So I took out my black Sharpie and wrote my own classic. For a good time, call Arnold at Arnold's phone number. Like a truly resentful ball of angst, I put his actual phone number. Then I was gone and I forgot all about it until the end of my month with my dad. On the way back, though, I used the restroom and recalled what I had written. Of course, I was excited to see if my lewd message had attracted any replies. Back then, bathroom wall graffiti was sort of like a cringe-inducing public square, a place for all manner of perverse and childish discourse. Below my message, in red ink, was a reply. I called, but no one answered. I chuckled to myself. Back then, I really did hope that someone called him. He deserved nothing less for his cruel behavior. I could have left things there, but I couldn't help my desire to egg things on, so I wrote something I greatly regret. Why don't you give him a visit? He's always happy to have company. When the school year started, I didn't notice that Arnold wasn't around until one of my friends pointed it out to me. It was a welcome relief. We figured that his parents had moved east into one of the larger cities. Our town was mid-sized but slowly dying. It wouldn't be the first or last time we lost a classmate to that long exodus. Jonesboro is a shadow of its former self these days, but that's a story for another time. Anyways, I didn't think about Arnold again until the following summer, when I was once again on the long drive to my dad's. We stopped at the world's largest truck stop, and, after pursuing the collection of salty snacks, I used the restroom. As soon as I set foot on the cracked and yellowed square tiles, I remembered my stall door conversation. I quickly located that middle stall, locked the door behind me, and sat down. There was a new message. written in the same hand and with the same red marker. Thanks for the tip. I got the best head of my life. Something about the message unnerved me. It was just as crass and immature as anything you'd expect to see there. I mean, on the right hand of the wall of the stall, someone had scrawled the message, "Jessica's mom has huge tits," above a crude rendering of the apparent mother in question. I think it was just a smiley face that felt weird to me, like it was a genuine nod of appreciation. That and the penmanship was oddly perfect. Whoever was writing those messages lacked the unsteady, jagged hand of everyone else. Their script was comprised of perfect lines and pristine curves. It seemed out of place next to the other harried scribbles. I don't know what it was that possessed me, but I wrote again, just beneath another message. I'm sure he'd do it for you anytime. That summer visit was another relatively uneventful one. Aside from meeting my dad's new girlfriend, who was surprisingly pleasant, of course, I was too immature to appreciate her efforts and then spend much of my time brooding alone. On the quiet ride home, we stopped at the truck stop once more, back in the restroom. It was a little odd, but then I got a little thrill, wondering whether there would be a response and what it might be. When I sat down this time, I felt my stomach churn. "Arnold's all used up. Need someone new. What about you?" Smiley face. There was a crackling of metal in the stall next to mine, the unbuckling of a belt. I nearly jumped out of my skin. This time I didn't write a response. It was starting to feel too personal. I booked it out of that restroom without looking back. I was in such a rush that I didn't even snag the black bear shirt that I had decided to grab for a souvenir. I locked myself in my dad's truck and waited. Didn't utter a word the rest of the way home. It was in October that a fisherman pulled a headless torso from the Sangamon River. It was that same month that I found that Arnold hadn't moved. He had been missing for over a year. The people that cared, it was big news when he disappeared. But not a lot of people cared. They never did find the head, nor the killer. So, no one could definitely say it was Arnold's body. I imagine it's still sitting in the morgue somewhere, waiting for the final piece of the puzzle. Of course, I know it's him. It has to be. And me? Well, I didn't go back to my dad's the next summer. I blamed it on his new girlfriend. Told him I didn't want to be around them. I regret that too. But I couldn't tell him or my mom the truth. I couldn't tell them I was going back, because even if we didn't stop at that truck stop, I was terrified of who might be watching me. Looking back, it seems irrational. But I realized later that the address I provided wasn't Arnold's. Right house number, wrong street. And so I wondered how they found him. And, even more, I wondered who else I might have condemned.